North Korea, 7 Mirror Room. Kim, Jin-mi. One of the innermost places in the heavenly world, the mirror room is filled with countless mirrors. The mirror is not a broken mirror. It is a device that reflects an area of the earth and its time. This mirror is distinguished by age and region. Series 30 mirrors correspond to the late Joseon dynasty of Korea. You can see the whole earth. For example, the past, present, and future of China or the United States can also be seen. It dominates both time and space as a four-dimensional space. The mirror room is managed and supervised by the white foxes, ministries, and bodhisattvas of the highest class, or above. Only the director does it. There are no cases of direct traffic into the mirror. Buddha and Bodhisattva do not enter the mirror. In most cases, they adopt ways to use or help people around them, or convey their meanings through shamanists such as human dreams and spirits. I will be the only one who directly intervenes. The Buddha and the Bodhisattva who know that use me. I have to go down and take care of it when I'm in a hurry. In an urgent case, when will you deliver the prophecy to the dreams of men and shamanists? I'm in a hurry, so I'm taking care of it right away. And humans are eager to ask for help so that the will can penetrate through the mirror and be delivered to Buddha, Bodhisattva, or me. Why would we help them so hard when they're not asking for anything? The reason why lower-class foxes should not go in is that they can't do anything but burn themselves. And although it does not break, it is extremely careful because there can be mishaps in time and space that can be distorted or flipped due to shaking or leaving the seat. Therefore, the fact that Sam Miho entered the mirror room last time and looked into the mirror 39 constitutes a felony. Samiho was locked in a fox prison for 100 days, his ability sealed. He's shocked by it, and he's nowhere near the mirror room. I didn't say anything, but Samiho knew all about the story of a girl with smallpox because Chilmaho said everything. Well, I'm too nosy to be bothered. After all, didn't everything work out without me doing anything? It made Samiho a celebrity who was questioned by foxes below the Omai class. Thanks to him, the mirror room has become a heaven of curiosity, where all white foxes want to enter with twinkling eyes. I'm in trouble. The mirror room is not a tourist attraction. This is a very important and private place. It shall be designated as an absolutely prohibited area. In that sense, I will take care of the mirror room today. Let's see. I saw the mirror in the 30s last time, so I'm going to look at the mirror in the 40s today. Well, is 40 Japanese colonial era? Damn, I don't want to see this era. There are so many people to help. I'm not good enough either. Once I see it, I can't help it. Then I can't even leave this room. I have too much work to do. I should have looked in the mirror in the 50s. However, the scene in the mirror has already unfolded in front of me. I'm a refugee. How haggard. I escaped from North Gondo by a narrow margin amid the massacre of many Koreans due to the Gondo disaster. Who knew that Koreans would be slaughtered in the Kando area when they fled to the Kando area? It was good when General Kim Jue-jin led the Battle of Chongsanari to victory, but how could they retaliate so brutally? I was lucky to survive because I was away from the village at that time, but I had no place to go, so I had to go to my parents' hometown. It's in Sancheonggun, Gyeongsang Namdo, but there's a really long way to go. I don't have many memories of growing up in Joseon, because I moved to Gondo when I was young. So, Kando is more like home. Still, I will be able to adapt to the place where I use the same Joseon language. I wish I could find a job. I came to Hamgyeongdo. However, it is fortunate that everyone took care of shelter and meals to avoid rain and wind to traveler even though it was a land of Joseon. I'm going to chop firewood at a house that puts me to sleep and feeds me, do field work instead of cows, and fetch water from a well, and pay for my meal. The current house seems to want to use me as a servant because the owner is very kind and there are no workers, but I still want to go to my father's hometown. I'm sorry, but it's Gangwon-do. I feel like this is a mountain village. It goes down the coastline, and it is time to harvest rice because there are few rice fields, but there are no suitable places to cut rice for each house. I'm going from house to house helping catch fish. The village I went to caught a lot of fish. Even so, the Japanese would steal everything, but they gave me some money to add to my travel expenses. It's a very grateful thing. I guess I still have luck with people. As I continued down the coast, I finally entered Gyeongsang-do. Although it continues to go south, it is quite chilly because the season is now deep in autumn. I can't walk a lot because the sun has gotten shorter. I should find a place to rest today. Where in Gyeongsangbuk-do, most of the rice fields and fields have been harvested, so I don't have much to do. I have no choice but to get firewood and chop it. Phew, I finally arrived at Gyeongsang-nam-do Sancheong. It's really far. How many pairs of straw shoes have fallen so far? No, I have to find the old man who remembers my father first. Where's the head of the town? I don't think there's much I can do to help him since we've arrived here safely. I'm gonna go out for dinner. But why did that young man show up in the mirror when nothing happened? I'm not asking for any help. That's weird. Let's get out of course. After dinner, I went to bed early after looking through the parenting and educational journals of Omiho, who is in charge of Fox Kindergarten. The next day, I looked in the mirror again yesterday. Oh, he went to that young village old man and asked for help. He got a room and he's going to live in that house? Looks like it's going to take root in his father's hometown. Older man, I'll go to the mountains and cut down the firewood. And I give it to each room when it's hot. I'll get some water. No, who told you to cut down trees and grow water? Water is grown by women. You can help me with something else than that. I didn't ask you to be my housekeeper. What? Sir, is there anything I can do for you? But why don't you teach your children, since you graduated from middle school in Gondo and read all your books? Because schools don't teach Joseon language and Joseon history properly. I teach a little Korean since 1920, but that's not enough. We still have an empty room, so gather the kids there and teach them Joseon language and Joseon history. Thank you, old man. I wanted to do something like that, too. But I'm sorry to just eat and play. No, I only learned Chinese studies in Sedang, so I lack Joseon language and Joseon history. I can't teach the kids. You'll do a good job. Thanks to the old man, I was able to teach Joseon language and Joseon history to my children. How rewarding is this? I'm also very happy to do something that can help. Everything's fine today. He seems to be doing well. Then I'll get going too. HMHM. A Japanese patrolman raided the room where we were studying. I don't know who caused the rumor. I just called it a fraternity, but the police officer took me in. I heard that the policy has eased a little since the March 1, 1919, Samul movement, but it doesn't seem so. Is the patrol in this neighborhood really bad, or is the Korean frontman who told the police officer worse? He interrogated and tortured all night, and then released him when he had little income. All the Joseon language textbooks and Joseon history textbooks I made were taken away. He seems to pay more attention to Joseon history than to Joseon language. Can't we teach the fabricated shipbuilders they created? Oh, my God, the trouble has begun again. Tisk, tisk, but you're still hanging in there. I can't make a textbook, so I just deliver it to the kids in words. I have no choice but to deliver it to the oral heart count. Children are intelligent and listen attentively and memorize with twinkling eyes. I heard Jews memorize genealogy with oral words, so I use that method. And Joseon history is delivered with oral language, and Joseon language classes read traditional fairy tales and poems, and children memorize fairy tales and poems. Then, let them present a report and write a poem themselves. Each child writes a cute poem. And talented guys write stories like traditional fairy tales. I'm so proud of them. These guys use the Gyeongsang Namdo dialect as it is, and in Gondo, all the immigrants gathered throughout the Joseon dynasty, so they used all the language of the country. The Joseon language class was in Gyeongsang language. So I teach them to write in Gyeongsang even though they speak in Gyeongsang-do. Since there is no Korean dictionary yet, and the standard language has not been established exactly, the issue should be discussed throughout the Joseon. I grew up listening to all local dialects of Joseon in Gondo. So there is no problem in communication. However, children here do not understand other local dialects. I have an advantage in that respect. We need to organize the Korean language systematically. Jang Ji-young, Lee Yoon-jae, and Choi Hyun-bi are said to have organized the Joseon Language Research Association. I'd like to add a little something to that. I should send a letter to the Korean Language Research Institute. Why don't we compile a unified Korean dictionary? I don't need to look at it anymore. I already know the ending after this. They tried to make a Korean dictionary in 1929, but failed because the Japanese interrupted them. Eventually, after liberation, they made a big dictionary of Joseon language. This young man must have set a small fire in the Korean dictionary anyway. He's a great young man. But why is it reflected in the mirror? I don't know. I think the old man noticed that I wanted to go to Gyeongsang. He already knows that I keep sending letters to the Korean Language Research Society and contributing to the Korean magazine. What should I do? The old man wants me to stay here, but even if I go to Gyeongsang, I don't know anyone and I don't have a place to live, but I can't just go there. Oh, I can see why it's reflected in the mirror now. It's not because of that young man, it's because of that old man who catches that young man. Both of the old man's sons died young, and he has one daughter left, but she hasn't married yet. He seems to want to make a young man his son-in-law. The old man's old daughter loves that young man a lot, and the problem is that she is much older than the young man. Besides, that young man has such a big meaning in Korean that he can't even think of it in that way. The daughter of that family was praying. Why did I know that now? I should have looked closely at the other figures in the mirror, but it was my fault. Tisk tisk, that young man will never go to Gyeongsang. God, Buddha, Bodhisattva, Samshin, Dangun. Please don't let him go to Gyeongsang. Let him marry me. Today is my 1000th day of prayer. If you don't listen to this, I'll be a virgin ghost. Listen if you don't want to see that. I beg you. I beg you, I beg you. Now, I'm going to skip the 40 series mirror and look at the 50 series mirror. I forgot that I was locked in my room for over a month while looking at the 40 series mirror. Let's look in the mirror 50. On August 15, 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. The so-called Emperor Hirohito, who is sick and tired of his voice, shouted, "I surrender unconditionally," and Korea gained independence. We wanted to win with our own hands, but now that we are independent by foreign powers dominate our country. I wanted to create a unified country, but the two Koreas were separated into regions of the United States and the Soviet Union, and elections were held only by South Korea. In addition, our Baekbeom Kim Gu was killed, and Ri Syngman became the first president. I was helping the independence movement under Mr. Baekbeom, who passed away and the country was occupied by Ri Syngman. I still doubt Syngman Ri's side why Baekbeom was killed. If Baekbeom had been alive, I am sure he would have become the first president. However, Ri studied in the US and is close to the US. South Korea was occupied by the United States. From the US perspective, it would be better for Ri to become president. Before independence, we thought of nothing but independence, but even after independence, our country is still dominated by foreign powers. Isn't it just the change from Japan to the United States and the Soviet Union? US troops are still stationed at the site of the Japanese military base. What, is this young man a student of Baekbeom? Or maybe he's a comrade to Baekbeom? It's a pity that Baekbeom went so vain. That's right, Yongsan Garrison. Now in Korea, they only emptied Yongsan Garrison until the 21st century, but it became a no-go zone because of the pollution from poison. No purification, of course no purification cost. In addition, with 100% of South Korea's tax, it moved back to the latest Pyeongtaek U.S. military base and got a higher defense cost. There are U.S. military bases all over South Korea. What would the American people think if the South Korean military was stationed in Central Park in New York, and demanded that it continue to raise the cost of the deployment on a new base without poisoning and purification? They'll know how it feels when they're told it's a disaster. These days, the US has also received a huge increase in defense costs, and it seems to have asked for a ridiculous amount. It's all American negotiation skills, but Koreans don't seem to know the reality of Americans. USA is asking for an unimaginable amount of money, pretending to negotiate, and pretending to give a little discount. If USA demands more than 10 times the original amount, America will make a big profit by pretending to give Korea a huge discount even if it's 5 times. But that in itself is already a negotiation skill. If the US makes no sense, Korea should respond together in a way that Korean can't pay any defense costs anymore, but I'm worried that Koreans will be fooled by the US negotiation method without knowing it. Koreans have to say that Koreans can't even raise it by 0.1 times. Rather, they cut it less than half, or say they can't pay. Tell them it doesn't matter if they go out. The US is looking at Japan and Korea and calculating what will benefit both countries. Is there no cognitive psychologist in the Korean negotiation team? If Korea don't have it, Korea need to discuss it with psychologists and prepare a countermeasure, but is Korean's brain not working that well? I'm even talking about the future. This is the era of liberation and the founding of the Republic of Korea, where the US military is controlled. Let's see. What's that, young man? We usually did independence movement in China. But China is closer to the Soviet Union because it has become communist. I'm not a communist either, but I'd rather go to North Korea. I can't look at South Korea now with my eyes open. A lot of meaningful comrades and famous artists left for North Korea. I think I'm very late. I'll have to go up before it's too late. Well, most intellectuals, artists, and professional engineers at that time preferred North Korea. They went up a lot. But they'll regret it later. I can't help it. I joined my comrades and came to North Korea. We decided to go to Pyongyang together to meet Comrade Kim Il-sung. My parents and I are native to the south, and I spent most of my life in China before going down to South Korea after liberation. However, I could not erase the feeling that it was an unfamiliar American colony rather than a home country. Oh, my God! The Soviet Union was a wolf, too. Stalin seduced Kim Il-sung to start the Korean War. Comrade like me, or people from South Korea, are almost purged. I was wrong. I should have just stayed in South Korea. Do I have to point a gun at the people of our South? If I don't do that, I'll die. What kind of case is this? God, I said I wouldn't want anything if you let me be independent of Korea. At least in Japanese colonial era, the Korea were not separated, but now they are independent and separated by foreign powers such as the United States, the Soviet Union, China, and Britain, and Japan are the ones who benefit from this war. That's ridiculous. Japan was defeated in the Pacific War and the country was doomed, but why did the US release all the Japanese kings and war criminals unlike Germany? Did the US get any bribes from Japan? Thanks to the Korean War, Japan is enjoying a special economic advantage because the US has procured all military supplies and food in Japan. The cost of World War II is more than enough to be covered by the Korean War. In this way or another, our country is quickly bled and robbed by Japanese people. Oh, my God! Is it the Korean War? These are scenes that I can't watch with my eyes open, but I made a mistake again. I must be old, too. I said I would never see it again before, but I've forgotten and watched it again. Oh, my god! If he survives the Korean War, does he have to go back to North Korea? Otherwise, he's a deserter, so he'll be shot? What am I supposed to do? Even if he didn't desert and went back to North Korea, he would be purged because he was from the south, but Kim Il-sung is also an untrustworthy man. I'm fighting with the people of the south with the North Korean army. I passed by Gyeongsang-do Daegu. At this rate, Korea will become the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I am neither a liberal democracy nor a communist. But I hate North Korea, which is trying to unify the same people with the same sword. I'll risk my life to surrender as a captive to the south. Isn't there a good chance? God, please help me escape to the south safely. Now you're asking for help. Well, I'll help you. I'll set that young man up to avoid any bullets or knives. Get out of here. Soon, the US military will launch a landing operation in Incheon, so the North Korean troops will be pushed north again. Then it's harder to escape. It is said that American soldiers landed in Incheon. They want us to retreat to the north. I'll have to escape before it's too late. If it's not tonight, I'm gonna die. God, help me. The white guy over there must be an American army, right? There's no Soviet in Gyeongsang-do, is there? Hey, help me. Please, drop. Oh, where am I? I'm lying on the bed. In the US Army, in the ward? I'm alive. Hooray! I escaped. Yes, my English is a bit short, so I speak a bit of Chinese, but I usually do independence movements in China. I'm not good at English. Oh. Yes, you are Korean. Yeah, you're an interpreter? Yes, I was originally a South Korean citizen, but after liberation, I went north with my comrades, so I joined the Korean War with the North Korean army. But I risked my life to desert because I didn't want to point a gun at my hometown residents. My parents and I have seen Gyeongsang-do. Because of that, I wasn't treated properly in North Korea either. Help me. I want to live in my hometown. Of course, I'm at war and I can't go anywhere I want, but let me either take you captive or fight in the South Army. That's enough. That young man will be fine. Let's stop looking at Mirror 53. After the end of the Korean War, after the liberal regime, it's the Park Chung-hee era. Time flies. Military dictatorship has begun. Still, Korea has developed its economy. I did well quickly, but there are many problems in establishing diplomatic negotiations with Japan. In the negotiations, Korea did not properly deal with compensation, and as the US demanded, Korea had humiliating diplomacy. I thought Park Chung-hee had a strong will, but why is he looking at America? Even if the money was in a hurry, it's not that diplomatic. That negotiation humiliates the Republic of Korea until the future, but Korea ended the negotiation with a small sum of money. South Korea was better off not receiving such money like North Korea, but Park Chung-hee and this man didn't fill his personal greed with it. He used it all for national economic development. He didn't even take 10 won from himself and his family. I admit that. It seems he probably thought he'd reign as a dictator like a king all his life. He was shot and killed by Kim Jae-kyu on October 26, 1979. What is the probability that his wife, Yuk Young-soo, will be shot and killed on August 15, 1974 by a North Korean army and a couple will be shot and killed together? His children aren't doing well either. His eldest daughter later becomes president, but she fails to serve to the end. His younger daughter is embroiled in scandals, and his beloved only son had been on drugs for a long time since his father's reign, and then only marries late, gives birth to children and comes to his senses. The death of unhappy parents and the lives of unhappy children. These are the scenes I never want to see again. As expected, it's better not to see the history of Korea. I'd rather look at ancient times or the Middle Ages. Phew. I'm tired from looking in the mirror for too long. I'm old now, too. I'm losing endurance, I'm losing memory. I'm telling you, Palmaho, he must be waiting for me to grow old and lose my mind. He is such an insidious bastard. He is the opposite of me. Yet, time is the medicine, right? When he is all old and bent, he'll ask for a showdown. I shouldn't come to the mirror room for a while. I've used up too much mental power. Go get some good sleep.